Hi, my name is James Norman. This is my assignment 5 for PED 612 Special Education and Law. For this assignment, I analyzed discipline data from Garden Grove Unified School District using California DataQuest. The goal was to examine suspension and expulsion patterns, and more importantly, to identify whether there are signs of disproportionality based on race and disability. This slide gives a quick overview of the district. Garden Grove has about 38,600 students and 1,381 total suspensions. Of all of that discipline, there only has 7 expulsions. So right away we can see that discipline is happening, but it's happening mostly at the suspension level, not at the extreme level like expulsion. When I broke down suspensions by the most serious offense category, a clear pattern stood out. The largest category by far was violent incidents without injury, about 850 cases. After that, 223 were drug-related, 166 involved violent crimes with injury, and smaller numbers for weapons, defiance, and other reasons. So most suspensions are coming from categories labeled as violent, especially those without injury. And that's important because that category is pretty broad. It can include a wide range of behaviors and often depends on how staff interpret the situation. So even though it sounds serious, it doesn't always mean extreme violence, and that creates room for inconsistency in how discipline is applied. When I looked at expulsions, the numbers were very different. There are only 7 expulsions across the entire district. 4 were weapons possession, 2 were drug-related, and 1 was for a violent incident without injury. There were no expulsions for defiance or other categories, so compared to suspensions, expulsions are extremely rare. This tells us that most discipline is happening at the suspension level, not at the most severe level. This is very good because one of the most previous assignments we did, it was talking about a lawsuit that happened where the school district was just pressing the easy button and not actually trying to address the concerns, and they were just suspending or expelling children, which got them sued. This is where disproportionality becomes more visible. When comparing the percentage of students in each racial group to the percentages of suspensions, certain groups were represented at higher rates than their share of student population. In other words, some students were being suspended more than we would expect based on how many of them are enrolled. This suggests that discipline is not being applied evenly across all groups. And because many of the suspension categories are somewhat subjective, it raises the possibility that bias, whether intentional or not, could be influencing decisions. The same pattern shows up when looking at students with disabilities. Students with disabilities are suspended at higher rates compared to students without disabilities. This is extremely concerning because these students are legally entitled to additional protections and support under the IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and the concept of a FAPE, Free Appropriate Public Education. If these students are being removed from the classroom more often, it raises serious concerns about whether they are receiving equitable access to education. So, overall, what I found is that discipline in this district is not extreme, but it is frequent at the suspension level. Most suspensions come from broad categories that leave room for interpretation, which increases the risk of inconsistency. And when we look at race and disability, we start to see patterns of disproportionality, where certain groups are impacted more than others. The impact of this goes beyond just discipline. Every suspension means lost instructional time, which can lead to falling behind academically, disengagement from school, and long-term negative outcomes. So from an ethical standpoint, this raises important questions about fairness, consistency, and equal access to education. If schools want to address this, they need to look more closely at how discipline categories are defined, ensure policies are applied consistently, and provide more support to students before resorting to suspension. Because ultimately, discipline should help students improve, not limit their opportunities. Thank you very much for watching this video, and if you have any questions, let me know.